CMQ investors, this is Chris Franco. Welcome to the show. A lot of you have been asking me my thoughts on this news that Elon Musk has become the largest shareholder in Twitter with a 9.2% stake. It sounds like about how much I have of Alibaba. So the question is, does this make Twitter a buy? I'm going to share my unfiltered opinion on this shortly, but first I want to make sure I say this. I am a fan of Elon Musk, so I think this is overall a positive thing. I think it's interesting. We'll see how it pans out, but the topic here is not whether or not I think this is cool. It's about whether or not I think that Elon Musk's presence as both the largest shareholder and now as a board member of Twitter, does that make Twitter a better business to own than it was beforehand? I can't see the future. No one can. But what I can see is some basic factors or basic characteristics of Twitter's business that would give me pause before I would load up. And I mean load up on shares. And I'll explain that in a second. But first, if you're new here, I hope you'll hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and become a fellow CMQ investor as we compound money quietly for the next several decades together. Basically, we're going to grow old together. That's what we're doing here. If you listen to the CMQ Investing podcast and you heard an episode where I went through everything that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger had said about what makes a good business good, and I took that list of characteristics and I wrote down the opposite characteristics. From that, I created what I call the bad business checklist. And unfortunately, Twitter, with or without Elon Musk, has a number of those characteristics, and I'll tell you what they are. Low returns on capital, little to no cash flow, and it requires constant innovation. And furthermore, it's not the leader in its category. Twitter makes 86% of its revenue, give or take, from paid social advertising. Twitter is a distant competitor from Facebook. I mean, we're talking it's like night and day. So I prefer personally to own businesses that if they're not already the leader, they have the potential to become the leader. And lastly, Twitter is an example of something that both Warren and Charlie have talked about before, which is a business that has a poor track record that needs fixing. Early in his career, Warren Buffett would find businesses that, might need some fixing up. And he learned that it's just not that pleasant, and it's often a lot harder to fix a business that has problems than it is to find a really good business and own that. As an investor, I want to learn vicariously from the mistakes of others. That's something that both Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger have advocated. So it would be going against that rationale for me to buy Twitter for the simple fact that Twitter needs fixing. Now, I love using Twitter. I've been a Twitter user since 2009, but there are lots of companies that have great products or services that do not create value for shareholders. Twitter is a prime example. If you'd have bought Twitter shares when Twitter IPO'd in 2013, you would pay around $41 or $42 per share. As of Friday, April 1st, before Elon Musk was announced as the new largest shareholder, you could buy a share of Twitter for $39.31. So if you'd bought into the IPO and you held on ever since, Twitter literally created no value for you. In fact, if you consider inflation, let alone opportunity cost, you lost a lot by investing in Twitter. Now, could that change? Absolutely. But as I said, I typically don't want to find a company that needs to do a turnaround. Now, Elon Musk is like a miracle man. I would never bet against him. But I'm not so sure that his presence on the board alone is enough to fix the fundamental issues of Twitter's business. I would imagine that there's other reasons for him to be so involved with Twitter that have nothing to do with him seeing an amazing return on his investment, at least over the long haul. I mean, you could say he's already done great, considering shares have popped 20% since this news came out on Monday. And I have no doubt that Elon Musk will probably encourage or maybe even demand that there are changes made that make Twitter a better product. But to monetize Twitter based on what the options are, there's a lot that has to go right and a little that can go wrong. And that's just for this to really work out. Now, as I've said before, I never root for a company to do poorly. I never root for any investor to get poor returns. I'm just speaking on, the way I'm looking at this as an individual investor. It's not financial advice. It never is. But I have no interest in buying shares in Twitter because I'm just trying to learn vicariously from the experiences of legendary investors. So buying a business that needs a lot of fixing, that doesn't give me the certainty that I want when I'm investing my hard-earned money in a business. I don't see how I'm going to get necessarily exceptional returns as a Twitter shareholder over the long term. Now, in the short term, you could play the position that, this news is going to help, Twitter pop because it's kind of creating this narrative that, the market's going to respond very favorably to. And look, that could work out great for you, but that's just not the way that I invest. As a CMQ investor, I'm looking to find a few great businesses that I can buy for a fair price or a reasonable price and hold for several decades, because that's how real wealth is created. It's through that long-term compounding. And if I can't find a business like that, then I'm just as happy to buy a low-cost index fund and do the exact same thing. Just buy it and not touch it. But what do you think of Twitter? What do you think Elon Musk would need to do to make the fundamentals of Twitter's business better and in a way that would actually create shareholder value? I also have this question for anyone who's watching. Are there any examples of investors who've become the largest shareholder, gotten a seat on the board, and been able to, create sort of like this turnaround just by their presence? What kind of influence will he really have, and what is his background in terms of, his business expertise that will allow him to turn this company into one that creates value for shareholders. I'm asking that with a completely open mind, by the way. I don't have a closed mind to this. I could have a blind spot here, and that's why I really enjoy and really value having the feedback and the comments that you guys have provided over the last several videos. So if you have comments, I hope you'll leave them. I will definitely do my best to respond to all of them. And as I said, if you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the bell, do all that good stuff. For CMQ Investing, my name is Chris Franco. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure you check out the links that are in the description. There's a lot of great original content there that you can enjoy and hopefully use to your advantage as an investor. Remember, none of this is financial advice. I'm an investor like you. Hopefully we can continue to compound money together. So make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll talk soon. Thanks again.